I got to a stage about a year down the track that I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. People don't like my music. My manager at the time was like, you gotta sort some shit out, otherwise you're never gonna make it. And I was only like 18, maybe freshly 19 at this point. I'm like, what am I doing? And I had the highest of highs really early on, and then hit a really, really low point and was like,
a star in the making, our guest today has taken the world by storm.
Following viral TikTok remixes and millions of streams, I present to you the one and only Oliver Cronin.
I used to be so worried about what people thought of me, and I used to put so much pressure on myself to please everybody. And once I kind of realized those two things, I just like let go, and now I make music that I want to make and put out content that I want to make. There's nothing beats that moment in the studio after you first created something. The thing about art that is so incredible is you have a blank canvas of nothing, and then all of a sudden you have something just out of your brain.
It ends up being beautiful.
Yeah, and someone will hate it, someone will love it, but as long as you love it.
You got reached out to by some managers, or how did that process work?
I had a really interesting start to my career because goosebumps even now because I'm thinking about all this shit.
Hello guys, Chris here, and welcome to another episode of the Pocket Podcast. Today we have Oliver Cronin in the studio. Ollie's one of my best friends, and we've been meaning to do this for a long time now. We are in the Warner Music HQ here in Australia, which is the label that Ollie is signed to, and we just had an awesome conversation. We literally just finished wrapping up this conversation, and it was a good one. We talk about Ollie's story, being a young lad just playing music. He would literally hold a stick and pretend that the trees in the bush were his audience, and he would just be practicing this, and then to becoming trying to become a professional cricket player. He's done all of these things. He's a really inspiring guy, and he is one of the biggest and probably the most up and coming artists in Australia right now. And he's crushing the game. So I'm going to shut up and you guys enjoy this conversation. And if you really do, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, and a 5-star one, by the way. It means the world, and it really helps the show grow so we can keep on getting amazing guests on, just like Oliver Cronin. So you guys enjoy the conversation. Let's dive straight in. We made it, brother.
It's been a long time in the making.
It's been one of those things, man, that we wanted to do for so long.
But it's interesting because we were talking this morning, and it feels like it's been so long, but also you started the podcast 7 months ago. So it really it actually in the grand scheme of things, it hasn't been long at all.
I think it's because it's been it's been like my life, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
But also when you think about 7 months, think about when we were in lockdown together, we wouldn't spend a few hours not together, let alone 7 months.
Yeah.
So when we talk about coming on the pod,
you're right.
But also when we were also wanting to do it in LA and all of this.
It's been in the talks for a minute.
But we're here now.
We're here, and it took a minute to get set up.
We've been setting up this awesome set. I'm so pumped. We're in Warner Music.
It looks great.
We're in Warner Music Studios headquarters.
This is the Warner Australia office, yes.
Warner Australia office. Yeah. And we've set up this set, which has been awesome. All of my equipment. Yep. For those of you guys that tune in on the on my Instagram, you'd know that I'm traveling at the moment, and
it's a mini podcast tour.
Mini podcast tour. But man, I appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thank you so much, dude.
I got you to write down a quote for me before we hopped on the show.
Oh yes,
it was something that you love, something that came to mind straight away, and you said you only know one quote, and it's from Post Malone.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember it,
and I loved it. And you said,
you tell me what I said because I forgot it. Something about, go. I remember it now, but you go.
You said only you can appreciate the genius that you are. Talk to me about that quote, brother, and what that means to you.
I think as a creative especially, you spend a lot of time trying to please other people and trying to get other people to appreciate what you do. And I still struggle with it a little bit, but I think once I understood that I'm doing this for me, I make art for myself. If other people love it, then that's awesome. But at the end of the day, I spent so long trying to get people to understand what I was doing and to love what I was doing. But at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. And only I really, truly understand what I'm doing. And this is my art and it's coming from me. So no one else can tell me how to do it, and no one else can try and push me in a different direction. And I spent a lot of time getting influenced by everything else, but I think, you know, only you can truly understand and appreciate how incredible you are. And true levels of self-love is the whole key to success and key to happiness. Being able to be truly at peace with yourself and truly understand how great you are, because everyone is a genius in their own rights. And as soon as you understand that, your life becomes so much better.
And you're a genius when you do things that you want to do.
Yes.
And you come up with your own ideas.
Yes.
If you talk about art's like creativity, like art's so subjective, but everything's art. But copying someone is not art.
Exactly.
That's someone else's art that's
Correct.
stolen, right?
And it's hard to, it's like being a creative and, you know, for me, a musician, for you, everything, podcaster, you know, influencer, whatever you want to categorize yourself as. But it's hard to, because every time you do something different, the world doesn't quite understand it yet, until everyone catches on, and then you're a genius. But people spend too long trying to do things that they think other people want them to do. They see something like, you know, they'll see whatever's hot right now and be like, oh, let me do that because that's what people want to see. It's like, no, they only like that because that was the first person to do that. And then now you look like you're copying and it's not the same. It's not authentic to you. But if you're truly an innovator, people will understand that. Eventually, they might not understand it at the start, but that's the uniqueness. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own unique abilities and their own unique things.
And the other thing I love about that quote is that, like, you're the only one that can appreciate the genius that you are, is when you create something with a vision in mind for it and you bring that to life, the feeling you have is
it's
like...
the best thing. You know what? Bring it to my field where the best part about making music and the reason why I get up every day and just like love my life is because there's nothing beats that moment in the studio after you've first created something and made a song. Once you release it and you do a video for it and you do content for it and stuff, it instantly kind of loses a little bit of life, because now that's art for other people to enjoy, which is also incredible. But there's nothing beats that initial moment when you create something, and you'd understand it too when you write an incredible poem or a quote or something, right? When you're like, this is like such an incredible moment, then you post it and it becomes other people's things to enjoy. But at the start, when you first create something and it's yours,
because you created it.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy...
You have the thing about art that is so incredible is you have a blank canvas of nothing, and then all of a sudden you have something just out of your brain. Like, what the hell?
And when it's really special and cool, there's this level of excitement.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's
it's unmatched.
Yeah, you said blank canvas just then. And for me, that's how all my best ideas have come. Just looking at a blank canvas and going, let's just
scribble.
write.
See what happens. See what comes out.
And it ends up being beautiful.
Yeah, and someone will hate it. And someone will love it. But as long as you love it.
Yeah. And that feeling that you get is just this euphoric feeling. I can imagine that. And I want to go back to when this did start, because there's photos of you've posted little transformation stuff, and it's so cool that you're just a young kid playing a guitar. And like, talk to me about your childhood and when the spark in you for music really kicked off.
So I've been around music my whole life. My mom's a musician. She's classically trained in, I think, 5 instruments, like the piano, guitar, I think like the clarinet, some random instruments that other ones I don't know. But she studied music in Africa for a bit as well. So I grew up around all sorts of different music and sounds, and a lot of world music, a lot of just different influences. My mom was in a kids band when I was growing up, when I was young. So every like 2 times a week or whatever, there was like...
It was like the Wiggles.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, it was like the 3 girls. It was like the girl version of the Wiggles. It was they were Byron Bay famous. They made the rounds around the Byron Bay. All the preschools and the kids knew them. But it was just like music was part of me growing up, and there is footage of me, and one of my like earliest memories I ever have when I probably just learned how to walk. Maybe I'm like 2, 3. I used to, because I'm an only child, so like I grew up in the bush, so I had to kind of just entertain myself a lot. And one thing I used to do is I have a big backyard where my parents grew up, where my parents live, and I used to get a stick and go into the backyard and pretend I'm playing a concert, and play the air guitar and sing and dance and pretend that the trees are my audience. And I just used to do that hours on end. My imagination just crazy. And so like I was always just loved music and art, and I played guitar when I was I started playing guitar when I was like 6. Mom got me, classical lessons. I played the drums. Mom got me a drum kit, and I was just always tapping things and making rhythm, and I was just always into music. And I think when I got into high school, it changed, and music wasn't as cool. I didn't think it was as cool when I was trying to be a cool kid. So I started playing sports and chasing girls and stuff. And then when it came back to me, I think all this previous knowledge of music and just being around it growing up just kind of sparked everything back when I was about 16.
And you kind of have this obsessive nature about you where you just go all in.
Yeah.
Like all in cricket.
Yeah.
You could have been
everything in my life is all in. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. And I think, I wasn't in your life when you were that young. I do remember when we first met, and we can touch on that. But I remember Sam explaining to me all the time about how if you would start something, you're just all in on it. Like when you started music, you just obsessed over it.
Yeah.
Like you just make music.
Yeah.
And fast forward to when we met in Sam's studio in Burley.
Yeah.
And I remember Sam played one of your unreleased songs.
Goodness
You hadn't released a single song back then.
This was like, I'd probably made like 10 songs at this point.
Yeah, and I remember he was like, guess the artist. And I was like, Juice WRLD or something like this. And
I remember that, yeah.
And then he's like, nah, it was Ollie. And I just went, no way. Next minute we're rapping.
And then we're freestyling on, we put on some YouTube type beats and started freestyling horribly. That was hilarious. Back-to-back freestyles, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was such a thing back then.
Dude, yeah. But it's so crazy to look back on
The journey,
dude. Like even just sitting here right now for both of us is crazy.
And you were just a kid in Burley.
I was at school.
You
just dropped out. No, you hadn't dropped.
I hadn't dropped out yet. I hadn't even realized music was gonna be that that involved. Like I'd loved it and loved creating it, but I don't know. I didn't think that. I didn't understand how the possibilities that could arise then. And actually, it's great that you mentioned Sam, because Sam was like the reason I dropped out of school. He was, when I started being super obsessed with music and started seeing that, this could be a career possibilities, and Sam was like hounding me because he just left school and started doing cool business stuff. And he was like, we were like 16, 17. And he was like, man, you got to drop out of school. Why are you spending 8 hours a day at school when you can spend 8 hours a day making music? And I'm like, damn, like you're right. Like, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to, like, at the time I was interested in being an engineer.
Straight A student.
I was a straight A student, and I was smart, and I'd sat my HSC a year early in maths. So I was smart, but at the same time I was like, as you said, like I'm all in, all or nothing. When I have a passion and a hobby, I'm like, to make this not a passion and a hobby, I'm gonna do everything I can to be the best at it. And so I was like, why am I spending 8 hours a day at school? And Sam was the person who like kicked that in my brain. And thanks, Mom and Dad, for letting me do that.
And I remember they probably weren't. They were a bit scared of you doing that.
Yeah. My mom was more comfortable with it because she's a musician, so she gets it. My dad's a bit more old school, so it took a bit more convincing to him.
Yeah, and we'll talk a bit more about when you did make that leap. And I remember because I was in Sydney, and Sam was like, dude, he's just got signed by Warner Music, and like he's a manager, all this stuff. And But I do want to touch on this family thing and this childhood where you said you're out in the bush, only child, had to find stuff to amuse you.
Yeah.
You used to throw cricket balls at the wall and just...
Yeah. So, when I'd stopped kind of making music and stopped, like, I don't know, when I got into high school and was like obsessed. It was like music when I was growing up until I was like 8 to 10. And then I just was obsessed with cricket and sport. And like when I was like 10, I was like, oh, I want to play cricket for Australia. That's what I'm going to do. And so I was like, how do I do that? at 10 years old. Obviously, I can't do it at 10, but what can I do for the next 10 years to make sure I can play for Australia? And that was train every day, all day, every day. So I used to wake up and I had a big, like a garage, and I used to throw a handball on the garage, and I got a cricket bat and I cut the edges off. So it was a really slim little thing. And I used to throw the handball and hit it every day, all day, every day. And to make it more interesting for myself, I, in my mind, created a whole cricket league of just like it's super nerdy stuff. Like you can go back to there's a whole bookshelf of just me just like writing random cricket scores, and it's super nerdy stuff. But I used to just like obsess over it, and all day, every day, I just do that.
It's
so
just
funny
crazy
thinking
just looking back, but
Yeah.
also and I like the extremities of some of the stuff going up. Like you weren't allowed sugar, you weren't allowed.
Yeah. And I'm actually so grateful for a lot of it now. At the time, I was like, Mom, just let me like drink a soft drink or something. But I wasn't allowed like screens. I wasn't allowed to like watch, like I wasn't necessarily not allowed, but we just didn't watch TV. We didn't really watch movies. The only like movies we watched were like live performance videos, because my mom was like obsessed with music. So we used to watch like, I don't know, like Talking Heads live show, like an hour and a half filmed set, stuff like that. And so I just like never really grew up around screens, which is such a foreign concept these days. And it's not like I grew up like in the 50s, but like I just like didn't grow up around screens, so I had to make myself, occupy myself. And so I went out I went outside and just like played soccer against the wall. I played cricket, and I made up whole cricket leagues in my head, and I played guitar. I just did whatever I could to just entertain myself. And I think that's really fueled my brain, to my creative side of it, at least.
Looking back at those times in reflection, do you think there's any key lessons that you learned from, being kind of put in a position as a child that's different to most children, where you're not allowed to have any sweets, you're not allowed to do anything, you don't have screens, you don't have the phones. Is there any lessons that you can look back and kind of take from those moments?
I think definitely being at like, it just fueled a creative side that I was like, okay, I've got to entertain myself. Like I've never been bored in my life because of it. Like now it's hard. Like now I'm on the screen all the time, but even if I didn't, I can enjoy my own company. I learned how to be, have fun on my own and be comfortable by myself. And these days it's kind of rare. Like a lot of people like aren't comfortable on their own. And that's something that I learned very young, how to like just like, I love being by myself. And that's something I learned from being able to just figure out how to have fun on my own.
I think the obsessive nature as well probably stems from that, because like from having that solitude and having to be creative with what you're doing. It's like, oh, I found something new. Let's go all in on that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I have time. Like I can't, like when I go home from school, I'm not going on my iPad for 2 hours after school. I'm not going on the PlayStation. I have like 3-4 hours to just do whatever I want. So let me train, or let me pick up a book, or let me just do something just creative and go all in on it. And it's exciting. Every day I'd wake up and I'd be excited to just tackle the day. I'd get home excited. Like, yeah, I was excited. I was an excitable kid.
Yeah. And then let's fast forward to when you got reached out to by some managers, or how did that process work? You went, okay, I'm making some music now. I think it's quite good. I have not released anything, but let's try and like take this the next step. What did that look like?
So I had a really like interesting start to my career, because I came at it again, like I had a passion for music, and I like everything I do in my life. I'm like, what can I do to make sure this is like, I'm not just another wannabe artist, right? What can I do to take this to the other level? What can I do that people aren't doing? How do I make it? And I realized I had to learn everything about the industry. I wanted to make sure my music was really good before I even put anything out. I wanted to make sure I had everything in place before I kind of went out into the world. And so I left school, and just put my head down and learned everything about the industry. So I thought at the time. Learned way more since then, but I learned everything I thought I needed to know. I made music until I was good, until I could compete with what I thought I needed to be. And I put one snippet out on Instagram. I posted something to SoundCloud, I think, and I knew that I needed to find a way to get in touch with people in the industry, like A&Rs, who were kind of talent scouts for labels, and then managers and just people in the industry to get my music out there. And so it was a time where the Kid Laroi was just starting to bubble in Australia. And so he had maybe like 60, 70,000 followers, and he followed 100 people. And so I was like, oh, these 100 people he followed must be important in Australia. So I went and followed every single one of those people. And when someone follows you, usually have an idea. I made sure I had an intriguing profile picture so they check me out. And about 3-4 people reached out to me off that. And one of them is my manager today, Tane, who you know, has been the first person to reach out. I flew to Sydney after he reached out. Ziggy and Manny were 2 other people who reached out to me, and they were working with Leroy at the time. A couple other managers, and I ended up sending them a kind of link of my demos. And the Australian industry is very small, so as soon as someone kind of catches wind of a new talent that's coming up, people just like catch on instantly. So it was a weird situation where I was like 17 with 100 demos, one of them on SoundCloud, and all of a sudden the whole Australian industry was like aware, and I was getting hit up from all the labels trying to sign me. I was like, oh my God, I need a manager. Got this business guy to come in and help deal with everything. And signed to Warner Music without anything out into the world. I had that one song on SoundCloud, and I was like, signed a major record deal, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is all happening so quickly. And yeah, I don't know. Like now I'm here. I mean, it's been such a crazy journey since then, but like it was all such a quick blur, and I was sort of just thrown straight into the belly of this beast of the industry.
I remember, and it's so clear to me back then, because I remember what was happening, and even the style of music and the avenue that it went down, and all of this. Let's go to that moment when you first got signed. You're like, this is it, I've made it.
Man.
And boy, were you naive at that point. You didn't.
It's like, it's everyone when you get in the music industry, you think you sign a record deal and you've made it. And that is the most wrong thing ever. And, you know, I signed a pretty healthy deal as well. I signed a big deal, and I got promised the absolute world, as you do. And I was young, so and I hadn't had any experience in the industry. And so it was a really interesting come up to be having to figure out me as an artist and as a person. Like, I didn't even know who I was. I was 17. Figure out me as a person, my art as an artist, my image and my brand. But I had this major label, Warner Music, like they're driving everything and inputting and like telling me what music I should make. And then I had other people around me saying, no, you need to do this. Your rap's so good. You need to be a rapper. And so hence where when you met me, I was rapping and wearing tracksuits, and it was a time, man. But like, I'm so grateful for that time because I learned a lot about myself through it. But I didn't really have that time where you come up on your own and you figure yourself out before the beast comes in. And I just went straight in and had to figure it out with a whole infrastructure behind me that was kind of molding me, and I became a product straight away. I didn't have a time to be myself and just figure out what I was doing. I was instantly a product. That's what you are. Is when you're assigned to a label, you're a product. I mean, your music's a product, but you're a product as well. So it's like instantly I'm 17 making pretty, like, it was all right music. It wasn't like it is now at all, but it was like all right music. But all of a sudden it's like, you need to sell records. You need to sell albums now. And it's like, I don't even know how to, I've never been to a studio before. I've been making music in my bedroom. Like, it's all like thrown straight into the deep end. And I had to learn really quickly how to navigate that.
We will get back to the episode in just 1 minute, but I need to thank our sponsors of the podcast, Switch Nutrition. More specifically, I want to talk about these 3 products that are in my hand right now and foundational health. There is so many different supplements online, different people telling you all these different things to do, but I love to strip it right back to the foundations and what are the things we need to be doing every single day to take care of that foundational health. I take these 3 products every single day without fail. Hydrate in the morning to keep me hydrated and energized for the day. the adrenal just before bed so I can sleep like a baby, and then the collagen I have in my yogurt bowls every single day. It's good to hit that protein goal, but then also your hair, skin, joints, nails. It's a game changer. So if you want to try out any of these products, you can go to the link in the description or the show notes below, and that is my collections page where you can find all the products that I love and take every single day. Alternatively, you can go to switchnutrition.com.au and use the code Chris Griffin and you'll get 20% off your entire order. Once again, hit the link in the show notes or the description below or go to switchnutrition.com.au to get 20% off your entire order if you use code Chris Griffin. We have a brand new sponsor on the podcast, Melrose Future Lab. Now, Future Lab is Australia's first dedicated longevity supplement range that is TGA approved and listed, Australian made and science backed. I'm not going to dive too into the weeds of all of their amazing products, but I just want to talk about one today that is their best seller, and I've been taking it every single day and have seen a noticeable difference, and that is the NAD Booster. Now, this product is massively trending at the moment with Dr. David Sinclair, Peter Attia, Andrew Huberman, LeBron James, Hailey Bieber, Kendall Jenner. The list goes on and on and on. And that is because it supports the most important molecule in your whole body, which is NAD, and that is responsible for cellular renewal. In a simple sense, you are born with DNA, and there's a set of instructions that make up who you are. Now, your body replicates that information based on the set of instructions, but over time, as you age, it replicates it worse, hence why you age. Now, as mentioned, the NAD Plus Booster supports the NAD in your body, which is responsible for that renewal, which makes you replicate that instructions better for longer, which results in anti-aging. When your cells are firing on all cylinders, you start to have way better mental clarity, focus, energy, and you just start to feel like yourself again. You can find the Melrose Future Lab products at your local Chemist Warehouse in the vitamin aisle, or go to melrosefuturelab.com to get more info. In those moments when you are just life changes like this, what are some of the challenges, like if you go to those times, like what would be some of the hard things that you were feeling or experiencing back then?
I was promised the world, and it didn't happen like I was promised, as is the case all the time. And I was angry that I was angry that my first song I ever put out didn't get 10 million streams and I wasn't famous. I was like, why? You said this was going to happen. And I was angry that people weren't connecting to my music because I was promised that was going to be a superstar. And I had people around me who were influencing me in a direction that at the time I thought was me and was right, but it was so not me. And it was, I got to a stage about a year down the track that I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. People don't like my music, or people liked it, but like I wasn't connecting with people. Like my manager at the time was like, you gotta sort some shit out, otherwise you're never gonna make it. And so I was just like, and I was only like 18, maybe freshly 19 at this point. I was like, what am I doing? And I had money. Oh, that was another thing that like tripped me out, is like I was 17, just dropped out of school and got a big record deal, and I'm like, oh, I got money now. I can buy nice shit and buy nice stuff for my partner and buy a car and get a nice apartment and all this sort of stuff. And then I'm like, oh wait, like this doesn't last forever, and I got to figure out how to make more money. And I just like, all of a sudden, all was so good when you first sign, it's the best. And you have all these incredible things around you. And then all of a sudden you realize that if you don't make things happen for yourself outside of that, it's going to get real shit real quick. And I had the highest of highs really early on, and then hit a really, really low point and was like, this sucks. I hate it. But that was the moment where I figured out how to navigate it and change my life. So I needed to go through that shit to be able to understand how to come out to the other side. And so I am so grateful for all that happened during that time.
Well, I remember that time, and it's just this weird thing where you've been pushing something one way and you kind of question what you're doing because it's not resonating the same way. You're in the limelight as well. There's this added pressure. You also like, and I made a post about this the other day, but there's no course that you can buy.
I saw this was,
there's no course that you can buy to deal with 500 million impressions.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy thing to conceptualize, because you go, like, you've got all these eyes on you, all this expectation, you've been backed, so you've got a bunch of money thrown at you, and then it's not hitting the way, and you go, fuck. You have this realization that, like, the easiest thing you can do is get in the room, but staying in the room is the problem. And then you're like, fuck, I thought my job was done, but it had only just started.
Just begins. And every day it begins again, because, you know, if we, like, we might be jumping the gun, but if we fast forward a few years and I had my first big song, which, you know, Boys Don't Cry, and the troubles that come with that is that you have a big song early on, and then now that's the expectation. And now you make money for yourself, and you make money for the record label, and you make money for people, but you've got to keep doing that. And now you have more eyes on you. You need to keep those eyes on you. And that is honestly way harder than getting into the room, is actually keeping you in the spotlight. Because then you get out of the spotlight and people say you've fallen off, and then they'll find a way to cancel you and all this.
And then if you find a winning track, but it's not your favorite style of music, and that's what people start to like you for, and you want to start doing stuff because you're still young, you're still sharpening the sword on who you are and what your style is, but then you want to change, and then it's not received the way that the other stuff is, but then you don't want to make the other stuff, so you're kind of in this back and forth phase. That would have been something that you've been dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, Boys Don't Cry is a perfect example of that. And I, like, not to the deepest level where it's like I don't like that track, because obviously that's an incredible. I dropped it. I didn't drop it for no reason. I remember when I made it.
You didn't like it.
Well, like I liked it, but I remember I made it and I sent it to you, and you're like, bro, this is fucking hits.
I was like, this one's gonna go viral, and you're like, oh, it's a bit cringe.
Yeah, I was like, I just didn't know how I felt about it, because it was different than like the other stuff I was making, but I knew it had a message in there, and the message is what I was really proud of, and I just didn't know how it would resonate with people, and I didn't know if that was necessarily the song that I wanted to, you know, go out with on a bang with. So, but then I posted and it started blowing up, and this is also another thing where, like, I had so much pressure to have something do really well, because it spent like 3 years and nothing really hit yet. So that started blowing up on social media, and I said I needed it. Like, I needed something to go viral, because otherwise I thought my label would drop me and no one would care. And that's not true, but in my head I felt so much pressure that I had to have something big. So I was like, let me drop it and see what happens. And I went bigger than I ever expected that song to be.
Yeah, well, it still goes big, like when you post it, and that's the crazy thing. But also the key point about that was the turning point for you on social media, where you went from getting some good traction with remixes, and when you'd post stuff of your own stuff, it wouldn't go as well. But then you started posting that, and that was a turning point where people were like, fuck yeah, I'm watching Oliver for his music, not the remixes.
Drum and bass. Yeah, remixes.
Because the remixes weren't like you actually making your own
it wasn't
verse.
even my face. My face wasn't even on it, and that was something that I learned really quickly too. Is like, your whole thing is a brand, and the remixes were doing really well, but I was filming my laptop the whole time, so no one even knew who I was. So that's another thing that I'm like, I need to start putting my face into it. I need to start showcasing my voice and what I actually wanted to do, and then Boys Don't Cry came along.
Yeah, let's talk about this social media growth, because it's been a wild journey, and I've been along it the whole time, and you've experienced all of mine and everything too. But I remember before all of this in lockdown was when you started posting the content. And if we go back to that moment, which was so crazy, you know, I was working at the time for working from home, and we built a gym set up in my office, and then, you know, you would come over at lunchtime on my lunch break, and we would pull out the bench press and we would like do these workouts. And with the Yui Boom, we would play a song that you had made that morning. It'd just be like some fresh music that you just
like
made.
Every day I'd come over like, bro, I just made this.
And it just kept getting better and better and better.
Man, that was honestly, like, it's so crazy that was one of the most exciting times of my life. And like, it's still to this day, that's probably one of the best times. Just because, like, that was when I was like, everything was starting to get really good. Like I was really being like, oh my God, like my music's like really dope. And like we had the best routine going on. It was like, we were like 20.
Yeah, well,
Not
19.
even 19.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah, and I was just I remember that I was just on such a roll then, and everything was so new to me, and I was starting to get people listening on social media. That was a fun time.
Yeah, and I think we just look at those moments and you know how you mentioned just before you had this massive high when you got signed, then you went and had this low. It's kind of like an identity crisis, a bit of an ego death in the sense where you're like, fuck, I'm wearing these tracksuits, now I've got to chuck them out.
Yeah.
And you literally kind of did. Like I remember you changed your whole brand from this.
And I changed my name. Like I was some people may know I was going under Asher, I was making rap music. Asher, my middle name, so it's not like a complete change. And the whole catalyst for the change is it wasn't working. And my management, my label team, and everyone was like, you got to figure your shit out, otherwise you're never gonna make it. And I took a year like off the public eye, and I didn't post anything, and I just figured out.
Well, they didn't let you release too as well, which was a factor.
But I think, and I'm so grateful they didn't, because at the time I was like, what, I'm making music, I want to drop it, but they were like, well, you got to figure yourself out first, because you're gonna just drop music and nothing's gonna happen with it. And I was so angry, and I just like I just locked myself in the studio and just made music and came out of it. And someone at the label was like, how about you change your name? And I was like, how dare you suggest that?
It was a big thing.
Yeah. And the reason was because the thing that I figured out was I was making music to appeal to a certain audience that was the complete opposite to who I am. And I grew up in Byron Bay in a nice, lovely house with two very loving parents. And I was trying to make music for like rap fans in like Western Sydney. And that's just not who I am. Like I still love all those audiences, but like they could never relate to me in that, like as deeply as I can from someone from that area and that upbringing. And I was like, I love pop music and I'm a pop guy, but I was just around this scene so much that I thought this is what I had to do. And so I was like, I want to start making pop music. And then someone said, you know, every pop star has two names. And I was like, let me think about that. Every pop star has two names in their name. Like Ed Sheeran, Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, everyone has two names. So they're like, Asher's not going to cut it. So I'm like, what can I do with two names? And then use your name. And I was like, why would I use my name?
It felt weird.
It felt so weird because I spent so long being Asher.
And people would refer to you as Asher.
And I remember people from my music life meeting people from my personal life, and they call me Asher. And then my friends would be like, Asher?
I remember vividly, but also you were Ollie. Yeah. And now it's Oliver. Yeah. And everyone refers to you as Oliver.
Yeah. People are doing Ollie now. This song, it's coming back. Ollie's coming back. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, it was such a weird thing when I would meet your music friends because it was Ollie. Yeah. And then it was just Asher. Yeah. And I remember Mason specifically, he would always be like, yeah, Asher. And then you change it, now it's Oliver.
And it's now like, I kind of like it now where the OG, the people I've known in the industry for a long time will still call me Asher. And I kind of like that because it's like, it's cool. That's like like Tane, my manager, like his kids, he's got 3 beautiful kids and I'm Uncle Asher to them. They always call me Asher. And I like that. That's like, cause they met me as Asher, like, which is, I like that.
Yeah, it's cool, dude. And the thing is, what's so inspiring is just the journey. And it's really cool. I think with everyone, when they go through some challenge or they're trying to achieve something that's out of the ordinary, like you're trying to be like one of the biggest pop stars in the world. Like that's not like an easy task, right? And so, and you've proven that. And I've been blessed to be able to be in close proximity to see that journey. But I think people to be able to see like you went from here to here, here to here, here to here, and like understanding that you don't know everything. You've not just been like this industry plant that like is getting everything for him. Like you've had to work, and also like from my standpoint is you've had to pivot. You've had to go, okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. Yeah. You've had to take things on your own accord and go, okay, I'm going to just take the reins to get some, like with the social media and stuff. It's like,
I think the beauty of it is, and the thing that I've come to terms with now, and even like, I even say this to fans and people is like, I'm a 22-year-old we're chill. We're still so young. I speak to people who are like 30 and they're like, dude, you're a child. And I'm like, yeah, like we're just figuring it out. Like I still haven't got anything figured out. I'm just figuring out my life, and it's okay. You're not supposed. I was 20 and I was like, I need to have my shit together. Like I need to have my life sorted. I need to like have like my family. I thought I was like no, you don't. You're young. Like we're still young as fuck. And it's like, it's okay to be figuring it out. And that's a whole part of the journey. And and I've recently come to terms with that. And it's like, it's okay if you change. It's okay if your music changes. It's okay if your branding changes because that's just part of it. But at the time, I didn't understand that.
I think as long as it's truly you and you're authentically being you, that's where it has the longevity.
Exactly.
What would you say, I know you're harsh on yourself, like what would you say some of the kind of pressures that you put on yourself are? Like what pressure do you put on yourself?
I'm impatient. So, and things move very quickly once people are aware. And so I want everything at once. Like I'm not playing arenas. Like that's not good enough. So every day I wake up, I'm like, how can I put pressure on how can I make a hit? How can I get to the point where I'm playing arenas or stadiums? And I put so much pressure on just continuous growth. And sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes you wake up and you're having a shit day and you can't make 3 videos and you can't make 2 songs, and that's okay. And sometimes you just want to fucking play PlayStation all day. And if I have a day where I'm not doing something towards my end vision, or not even end vision because it changes all the time, but I put so much pressure on daily growth that if I don't do anything, I beat myself up. You guys, my fiance, I'm in a shit mood. I beat myself up about it. But you need the balance. You need to be able to take some time away and not, make 5,000 followers in a day. Like once you see growth, it's really hard to not have the same growth every day. And I beat myself up about it all the time.
Yeah, and I've experienced that, obviously.
Because you grow.
It's all relative though, because like when you start growing 5,000 followers a day and you go down to 1,000 followers a day, you think that that's not good. But you go, okay, well, like 1,000 people every day, like my whole school, whole high school in one day had followed me. Like and they're randoms.
And that's what, it's all relative. Like, and then as soon as you start hitting a big peak, it's like, that's the standard. And like, even now I look at like, I'm getting a lot better. Like now I like rarely look at my stats on like Spotify. Like I used to be every day, like every hour, see like how many people listening to my music right now, how many streams yesterday. And like, I remember actually thinking about this the other day, and I was looking at my Spotify and I had like a dip. I had one, like a low day. And I was like, if you look at like the month of how many people listen, and like this was the lowest day, and I'm like, fuck, have I fallen off? And it was like 50,000 people that day had listened to my music. And I'm like, dude, 2 years ago I had like 200 people that day listening to my music. So it's all like this, like I'd never even imagined that many people listening to my music, but it's all relative. So that day I would have been in a shitty mood because I thought, I'm not doing enough.
But like, why do you think like the progress thing's interesting? Why do you feel this urge to just progress? Like why, like, I'm just trying to understand why, because like I've seen it in you as well. When things are like going a bit lower, it just kind of ruins all your mood. I feel like this concept around happiness being tied to progression is really enhanced in you, where you just, when you're progressing, your mood is just so much better. And I understand that, but have you ever unpacked like where it's coming from? What's the drive coming from? And
I think it definitely comes from a sense of just impatience, where, and also like a sense of envy, where I see certain people getting certain opportunities and doing certain things, and I'm like, dude, I've been working so fucking hard for this, and it hasn't happened. And then I'm like, well, if I spend a day off, someone else is spending that day making music. So I've always had the philosophy since I started playing cricket that it's like, in order to make it to be the best in the world at something, you have to do more work than every single other person. So I think it comes from that. Just I put pressure on myself to be great. And if I miss a day, that's a day someone else is doing something. And it's funny with music because it's not a competition. There's room for everybody. And I know that, but it's still for some reason doesn't click in my head. I think I'm getting better at it. And I think the best thing is having a life partner. Like my fiance helps me a lot because she's like, dude, just relax, like take a break. It's all gonna be okay. Like, and even my manager too is like, you see all the stuff we've done this year. Like, it's okay to have like 2 days off. Like, but I don't know. I struggle to see it like that.
Let's talk about your fiance. You've been with her.
We'll cut the name. We'll beep the name.
We'll bleep the name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll bleep the name. But
Yeah.
let's talk about her. And so you've been with her for how long now? And
it's been coming up to 8.5 years.
8.5 years.
Since we were 14.
Since you were 14, you've been with her.
It was her birthday last week, and that was our 9th birthday together.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And like, you know, it's an interesting thing because when most people look at that, they're probably going to make assumptions, make judgments of like, you've known each other for so long. Like you would hear it day in, day out.
Especially when I announced my engagement, and even when I tell people I'm about to get married at 22, people are like, you're way too young. You got way too much to live. You got way and I mean I get it from their standpoint, but also like people don't understand. I don't think people understand where the journey that we've been through, and I would be nothing today without her. And she is so supportive, and having a life partner to just experience life with is the most incredible, beautiful thing. Like I wouldn't want to do any of this if she wasn't there with me, because I'm like, what's the point? Like everything I do, I want to experience with her. If I'm able to travel the world with my music, and to be able to bring her and have her see the world with me is the coolest thing ever. And like being able to experience the highs and the lows and having someone there to be with you through it is like the most incredible feeling ever. And so like for me that's what life and success is, and I'm so happy with it.
And how important has she been in those low times when you've got all this
Everything.
uncertainty?
I don't know, be sitting here today without her. Like, yeah, I've been in dark places, and she's been able to pull me out of them, and vice versa. Like we help each other, and it's a life-changing and life-saving having someone like that.
It's pretty cool to hear. And, got the wedding next year. Which is just a crazy thing for me to even conceptualize. But
everyone's like, dude, my friend's getting married, and they're like, you're 22.
Yeah, and but I think it's so cool. And, like even just when we go back to those times where it's just you two, and then there was me living in the building next door, and we'd go and just have
cocktail dance parties during lockdown. And I remember, man, when lockdown was getting real strict, and we were paranoid about getting in trouble because you weren't allowed to leave.
We were.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was more paranoid than us, but it was like you weren't allowed to leave the house, and so but you lived directly next door, and so but I remember you come over and you'd sit outside the building and wait and see if the lights in the hallway turned off so no one was in the staircase, and then you'd sprint up and sneak into the apartment, and then we just like have dance parties.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's so crazy to look back, because the thing is what's so wild, and this is why such a big part of my message at the moment recently has been about how quickly your life can change.
Yes.
Like your life can change so quickly if you let it. Like when we look back at our journeys, like I get messages all the time. Some people don't even know my age. I'm 22 years old. We're both 22 years old. And like all of the stuff that we're talking about is literally
like
the last couple of years.
Maybe 3 years ago max.
And
in the grand scheme of things, it's a second. It's a blip.
Yeah, but it's also the majority of our adulthood.
Yeah.
So it's kind of which is a crazy thing as well.
Yeah.
But I think when we look at that, it's we've wanted something, we're getting after it, we can support each other to try and strive for that, give our opinions, give our thoughts, and then, but also I think a lot of it comes down to the moments by ourselves, the solitude, because even with us, right, it's being kind of this, when we're actually doing the stuff that's moving the needle, it's kind of alone, and then we kind of disconnect a little bit and move all these mountains by ourselves, and then we come back and reflect on how much shit has happened. And I think it's so cool to really, use that reflection as a tool for appreciation of how far that we've come, because
it's all we got for that, and I think you touched on something really good there, where it's like it's hard to relate to, I don't know, like as much as you can prepare, like I've had this dream to be where I am for a long time, and you've been the same. But also in my mind, like there are things that are happening to me that I've dreamt about and manifested and thought about for a long time, and then now I'm here and it's like this is never what I imagined. This is like I thought I was prepared for this, and this is not what. And now I'm like,
the thing is you like, I thought I was prepared for this, but when you look back at it, you had no idea what this is.
It was a figment of your imagination.
Yeah. I think what happens is we pedestal people that are at levels that we're potentially at now when we had nothing. And when we pedestal something, our imagination kind of goes wild with all of these other things that they have. But more importantly, I think it focuses on all of the amazing parts about their story or that person, as opposed to the actual whole picture.
Yeah.
So then when we get here, our expectation was it was all going to be sunshine and rainbows, but we realized that no, most of it's actually a heavy rainstorm. And then every now and then we get to see a bit of rainbow.
Yeah. It's like 80-20 the other way.
Yeah. But you know what? It is so...
The 20% is so worth it.
And it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Honestly, it makes so much sense. Nothing like everything's too good to be true. Like you can't only have good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the more shit you go through, the more appreciative you are of the good. And so when you go through all of the shit, you can kind of reframe that as the price tag to have the really high euphoric moments.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a lesson for that. It's like when you look at those lows that you've been through, they fucking sucked.
Yeah. And I think that the one thing that I've been struggling with, and I'm not sure if you've been in the same boat, where it's like you go through so much shit to get the good stuff. And now, like, I struggle with every time something amazing happens and I like achieve a goal that I've been trying to achieve for a long time, I struggle to be able to enjoy that as much as I should, because I know there's a low around the corner. I know that this is not going to last forever. And then it's like, in 2 months, something shit's going to happen. And I don't want to go too high, otherwise the low is going to be fucked. So like, I've been trying to get better at like actually celebrating stuff, because I think that's also a really important thing, is like celebrate the little wins. Because I've always told myself, don't celebrate it because there's a low around the corner. But I think I used to have that philosophy for so long, and now I've changed my mind on it. Like, I think it's so important to celebrate the highs, because as we said, it's more lows than highs. So if you spend a lot of time all low, and even on the highs where I'm like, so much shit's about to happen, then you're never gonna be happy.
But also, this is the underlying thing is a low and a high is only relative to what low and high you've experienced in the past. So like, the only way to deal with shit easier is by going through more shit.
Yeah.
So like, it's harder, and this is why a baby cries, is because when something happens so little.
Yeah, when they're hungry.
Yeah, it's because they don't know any deeper of a low.
Yeah.
And so as you go through life and you experience more lows,
Each low becomes
relative.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Goggins talks about callousing the mind. I've been toying around a lot with the Stoicism approaches recently of like being calm in the chaos. And like the only way to be calm in the chaos is to go through enough chaos that the chaos doesn't harm you at all.
Yeah.
And so people can't just read a Stoicism book and it says, be calm in the chaos.
Yeah.
So then when all the chaos is happening, they can just go, okay, yep, sweet, I'm calm.
Yeah.
No.
You got to go through it.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way. The only way you can get through the chaos in a calm manner is by going through more chaos.
And it puts a different perspective on the chaos, where like all the low shit that I experienced 3 years ago, I am so grateful for. So now I go through low stuff and I'm like, well, I know in a year's time, I'm going to be so grateful for this because I'm going to come out on the other side of it. So, yeah.
In those low times a few years ago, what are the main thoughts that you're going through then? Like, what are the concerns? When you're talking about a low, like, what is it?
A lot of it's like, no one's going to listen to my music. I'm not going to actually have an impact that I want to have an impact on. I'm going to a lot of it is letting people down, especially because like I have someone trying to get in, especially because I have a massive team around me now, and like it's insane and it's great, and I have a lot of people helping me achieve the goals that I want, but also like there's a lot of people I don't want to let down, and so a lot of that back then as well is the same thing. It's like I don't want to let people down. The record label is invested in me. I have my partner, who I want to support. I have a family I want to take. I have all this thing I want to achieve and people I want to take care of, and I don't want to let anyone down. So a lot of it was the kind of fear of letting people down, and I think it goes in hand with people pleasing, but yeah.
And for you now, when maybe things plateau, or I don't know, maybe you're going through like a little bit of a lull, maybe it's creatively, financially, growth on social media, whatever it may be, do you have more confidence now that everything's going to be okay? Or does it still come in where you get this pressure that you can't do you just get nervous and you go, oh fuck, I don't know if this is going to work out at all?
But it's not as deep as it used to be. And I wrote a song about it, which is out. It's called In the End. About just like every shit time that I've ever been through, and I think everyone can relate, is every shit time, it always gets better. It always works out. And I always try and remind myself every time that it is always going to get better. So I'm better with dealing with it.
Yeah. And you wrote that song in a low?
I wrote that song on a high. And I wrote that song after coming back from a worldwide trip, because a big dream of mine was to be able to travel the world to make music. And I'd come back from a big 2 months trip around the world, and I was reminiscing on 3 years ago when I went through that initial low phase, and I didn't think I was ever going to make it. And I thought I was going to let everybody down. And I came back from this trip and was like, man, it all worked out. What I was worrying about wasn't right, and then I started thinking about every other low point in my life, and like everything's always worked out in the end.
Yeah, you realize that you've made it out of every challenging time in your life.
So say something about the challenges; it's worth it,
which gives you confidence. But I also think it builds character, which is probably the most valuable thing we can obtain.
Yeah.
So if the most valuable thing we can obtain is character, and the only way to gain character is to go through the low times are actually great.
Yeah.
And it may not seem like it in the moment, but sometimes we just need to take a little step back, kind of like look at a bird's eye view of our life and look historically and go, yes, all of these things that we've done have always led to something great.
Yeah. And if you look at it in a like a graph point of your life, it's always going to be like down, and then a bit higher, then down again, and then just a bit higher, and then a bit higher. And then if you look at it, as you put a line through it, it always goes up. But you have to have those dips to be able to come out higher than you were.
Yeah, and I want to talk about my favorite song of yours. And there's something about this song that just gives me goosebumps when I listen to it, because I kind of look at your story, and just when you played the song live, I just literally get, do you know which song it is?
I think I know.
Which song do you think?
I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Hope You're Doing Well there's something about that song where for anyone that's listening that has not listened to Hope You're Doing Well by Oliver Cronin, go and listen to it, because you've wrote this song speaking to your future self. And so you're basically don't have much of a name for yourself when you're writing the song, and you're basically putting yourself in your future self, and it's like you've done all the things that you've wanted to do. And so like, it's like, I hope you're singing with your friends right now to a sold out crowd.
Yeah.
And like, I remember,
Damn, I got goosebumps even now because I'm thinking about all this shit. Yeah, it's crazy.
and I just remember when you wrote that song and you like are going, I want to sing this at a sold out crowd.
Yeah.
And I remember when you like were at one of the massive shows and you're singing it and everyone's got their thing out.
That was that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's always like, thanks for bringing that up. I forget about that. And one part of it is also, in the second verse, I say, I hope you take those trips to LA. And since writing that song, I've been to LA like 5 times. And I'm like, and like now every time I go to LA, I'm like, oh, I'm going to LA again. But back then I was like, I really want to go to LA. And like, I keep forgetting that there was a time in my life where I was like, I hope you get all this stuff and I hope you do this. And wow.
I hope you make your mama proud.
Yeah.
And your girl happy. And then,
Hope they are.
And dude, here we are. And I think like honestly, it's just so inspiring. And I think that's the power of music is you can tell a story and people can interpret the music in however they want to.
Yeah.
And they can feel something different to someone else based on what they're going through in their life. And it's also a timestamp.
Yes.
Which is so special. What are your thoughts on music and a timestamp?
Music is medicine, but also music is a soundtrack to people's lives. You listen to a song and it will instantly transport you back to a time. And that's the most powerful thing about music. The world wouldn't revolve without music. If you think about it deeply, everything in life is driven by music. Like you wouldn't watch a movie without music. You wouldn't. Even like right now we're in Warner's office and there's music playing out there, and you wouldn't, if it was silent, it'd be different. If you go into the car, I mean, I know people like going into the car silent, but a lot of people like just driving a long drive silently. Like people work their whole lives to go to music festivals, and music really drives the world. And if you're sad, you listen to music. If you're happy, you listen to music. It just makes things better. And that's like the thing that also keeps me going every day, is the fact that I could potentially make a song that saves someone's life or is a soundtrack to someone's life. And that's like the most fulfilling feeling ever.
Has there been any moments where you've kind of gone, what the fuck is life? And has there been any like, wow, I made it moments?
The wow, I made it moments is interesting because all the coolest shit that I've done is kind of like I'm not there. I look back on it and I'm like, wow, that was really cool. But at the time I was like, this is happening, but I want to do this now because I'm about to do this. Then this is just like a stepping stone for this. So there are I made it moments, but they always come like a year after I've done them. Like I was reminiscing the other day where I played the halftime show for the NBL Grand Final. And that was my first ever time playing in an arena. And that was one of my first ever concerts. And at the time, it was like I fully like dissociated and I wasn't even there. I didn't remember it. But looking back at videos, I'm like, damn, like I did that like 2 years ago. And that was like, I made it. Like thinking about that like 4 years ago, doing that with like, it's crazy, like 20,000 people. Like what? But at the time, I didn't have that feeling. And I think every other cool thing that happens, I have that feeling that it's like, well, now this is about to happen. I know this next step is about to happen. So I'm trying to get into a position where it'd be like, oh, like I'm like this really, can I step back a little bit and look at it being like, wow, this is really, really special. But honestly, that one thing that I have felt is like being able to travel the world, being able to like, I went to New York recently and that was a big I made it moment because I've been wanting to go to New York for a long time. And I've heard people talk about New York and we always think about New York. And as an Australian, it's hard to get to New York. And I was there and that was probably the latest I made it moment when I was there. And I was like, damn, like I'm really in New York right now for work. Like this is crazy.
And what about the fans? Has there been something that has like ticked off in you, like a feeling when you've seen some impact or you see someone in person? Has there been any moments there that have kind of made you realize new things or kind of reflect?
Man, it's still crazy to me that I even have fans. Like that's still it's such a crazy thing. Like there's also like going back to pressures, like I also feel like I owe stuff to fans too. Like I like having people want to like spend money to come see me or buy my merch and stuff is like I owe you a lot of good music now. And I know that's like I don't really, but like I'm so grateful for everyone who is a fan of me that like I feel pressure to continue to please them and help them because that's what I'm in this for. But a few things like having people have tattoos of me is always going to be crazy to me. One of the craziest moments was when I was at my Melbourne show on tour. I was signing autographs and getting photos at the end of the show, and someone's like, "Oh, can you sign my arm? I want to get this tatted like tonight or tomorrow." I'm like, "Damn, that's crazy." Yeah. And I always feel so much pressure when I have to draw a tattoo for someone because like that's gonna be on your body forever, and I'm drawing that. I feel pressure, but I did it, and then 20 minutes later, I was still there signing and taking photos, and she'd come back and she had it tattooed on her already, and I'm like, how? Like she's like, yeah, there's a tattoo parlor across the road, and I just got it done straight away. I'm like, that was the single most crazy thing that's happened, and like my signature was just like on her arm. I'm like, that's crazy. Someone recently got a really big "Hope you're doing well" bullshit tattoo, like all down her arm. That was her first tat ever. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I think for me, it shows that like it's not actually about the tattoo. I think it's more specifically the feeling that you've made them feel, and they want to be reminded of your music when they look at it.
Yeah, and I think that's like so special. And it's funny because I have a tattoo. I have "Good Kid, Mad City" tattooed on me, which is Kendrick Lamar album, my favorite album of all time. And for me, that was a no-brainer to get that. And now I see people get tattoos of me. I'm like, that's like crazy. But I also understand it because I'm the same.
And it's hard to conceptualize that. But yeah, I feel the same way. I remember I was explaining how excited I was about, you know, one of my biggest mentors, like going full circle where he reaches out and we're meeting up and hanging out. And then I was explaining to people at my run club that I was feeling this excitement. I'm like, it's so crazy that I can hang out with this person. And then the girls go, now you know how we feel.
Yeah.
And it all hit me and I just went, no.
Yeah.
It can't be.
Yeah.
It can't, but it is.
Well, because we're fans. I mean, for me, I'm a fan first. Like, I love music and I love musicians, and being able to meet my idols is insane. And so I understand it when people are so excited to see me. Is like I have that with my favorite artists. So it's a really cool feeling to be able to be in that position.
And I want to ask a bit more of an open-ended question just to see where your mind goes. If you don't have anything, that's fine. But is there any kind of messages that have resonated with you recently, or has there been any kind of ideologies or mantras or something that you've kind of been able to use in your life recently that has helped you at all?
Something probably in the last like year that's really changed my life is just realizing that you can't please everybody. And kind of letting go of that pressure that you put on yourself to please everybody. And that's been a big relief for me, being able to just realize that people are going to hate this, and that's okay because there's 8 billion people in the world and you're never going to please everybody. So that's a big one for me, but also not caring about how much people think about you, which goes hand in hand in pleasing people, but like, making content, people see, like, it's funny, my fiance gets embarrassed when I'm outside in public and I'm filming a video. But I'm like, no one cares. No one's on the street judging you. And if they do, then I'm never going to see them again. So certain stuff like that, where I'm like, no one really like cares about you the way you think people care about you. And I think once I figured that out, it takes a lot of pressure off you and a lot of stress, where you think people care deeply, but they don't really.
Did you used to care a lot?
Yeah, I used to be so worried about what people thought of me, and I used to put so much pressure on myself to please everybody, as we talked about. And once I kind of realized those two things, I just like let go. And now I make music that I want to make and put out content that I want to make. And I'm just myself. And if people don't like it, I don't care. And if I go out on the street and embarrass myself, I don't care, because these people don't really care.
And what do you think the negative is of worrying about that? Like, what do you think it holds you back from doing?
Being yourself. Because you have so many outward influences, kind of putting you into this thing, and it stops you from being yourself and learning about yourself. And yeah.
You know, what's crazy about that as well is being yourself is the superpower, the only superpower
it's the
that
only
you
unique
have.
thing that everyone, like, we're all humans, and every single person is different. And so if you try and be like someone else, or be like I'm a massive Justin Bieber fan, but I don't try and be Justin Bieber because he's already Justin Bieber.
Fuck, I think this is going to go over people's heads though, and I think it's such a simple concept, but if truly understood, it's quite profound. By worrying about what other people think, you remove the one unique thing you have about yourself, which is you.
Which is your uniqueness, yes.
And so by worrying about what everyone thinks, you hide in the crowd of everyone else, which means you have no chance of standing out, which is the only way you can get ahead in life.
It is the key to success.
So, like, I think I would say that 99.96% of people worry about what other people think, which is the key to the room that is like with everyone else. And it's going to try and do something against the grain, and to make yourself stand out from the pack, you need to be authentically you and unapologetically you, because it's the only unique thing you have.
And people get scared, and I got scared early because I had this mentality, and then people started hating me. And I was like, oh, well, I can't do that. But people are gonna feel a type of way if you're bringing something different, because that's just life. People get scared of something different. People scared of change. People scared of hearing something different. People scared of seeing something different. But that's gonna happen.
They also just don't want you doing better than them.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's been drilled in most cultures, especially the ones that we're surrounded in Australia. But I think honestly, there's no benefit to wishing someone else fails, because if they truly want it, they're going to get after it anyway.
Yeah.
So by you judging it, all you're actually doing is putting more pressure on yourself, and you're making life less enjoyable for you, because all you're thinking about is how well other people are doing when you don't want them to be doing well.
Yeah. The comparison is the cease of joy. Like, especially in a creative field and in the public eye, you know, it's only natural to compare yourself to people, and I've been trying to be better at that, and I'm sure you've had your fair share.
You know what
of
I think the
too.
comparison, for me, my comparison only creeps back in when I'm not truly aligned with my path, because when I'm truly aligned, I know where I'm going. I've got progress towards
and you actually
there.
have no one to compare to.
Yeah, well, you just feel great about everything that you're doing. You're not questioning anything. There's no time or space to compare, because you just feel so confident with everything that you're doing. And so if you're caught in a state of comparison, a realignment of sorts needs to happen in your life, because when you've got your soul-led version of you steering the ship, and you've got a goal that you're striving towards, and you're progressing towards that, there's actually no room for that comparison.
Totally.
And so for me, I realize that when I'm ever in a state of comparison, it's because I'm actually steered off my path a little bit.
That's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah. And I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Is there anything exciting coming up? We've got to wrap this up soon and get out of the studio that we've built. But is there anything
we spent 2 hours
exciting?
putting it up, and now talking.
Is there anything exciting you're working on, or is there anything you want to share with the crew?
So much. I mean, I recently dropped my EP, which is a kind of a teaser and a prelude to the album. So I'm personally just super excited to be able to get back in the studio and work on my album, because all I love doing is making music. And I spent a long time focusing on other stuff, which has helped me immensely, and I'm very grateful for it. But I'm really excited to now be able to get back in the studio. We're doing big promo runs for the album and doing shows and all really cool stuff around the EP. And once that's done, I can just sit in the studio and just write, which I'm so excited about. But yeah, we're working on tours. We're working on more travel. Collabs, really exciting collabs coming out that I don't think I can talk about quite yet, but
can you explain what halfway to paradise means and what paradise is?
So I've had this idea of writing an album called Paradise for a while, and one, for me, releasing an album is my version, is paradise. Like, to be able to drop an album is paradise. But I also wanted to be in what I thought a state of paradise was when I dropped this album. I wanted to be in the best headspace, and I wanted to be as successful as I could be at that point, and I wanted to be super happy in whatever paradise looks like. And during this journey of writing this album, I realized that doesn't exist. I don't know, maybe it does exist, but I'm not quite there yet. And I've written all this music for this Paradise album, but I don't know where paradise sits for me, because my idea of paradise keeps changing along the way, because I reach something that I think's paradise, and then I'm like, no, this isn't it yet. This is paradise. And so I think we're on the way to being wherever paradise is. But I wanted to show the world what we've been on to find paradise. And that's this body of work that I've just put out, which is halfway to paradise, because we're getting there. We're on the way there, but I don't know what paradise is going to look like, but hopefully I find it in the next few months so I can put it out. We'll see.
I love that, man. And I just want to commend you. I think it's been so cool to watch the journey, even from afar.
Likewise. I mean, like, as we said at the very start, like, it's been like 8 months of this podcast.
Yeah,
and
launched in February.
And we were recently in the States together. That was crazy, being in LA together. Like,
I think it's just one of these things. It's a really weird thing. I kind of none of it feels real.
Yeah.
And it's all really exciting. It all feels right. But it's just so crazy to look at how far it's all, like, what the fuck has happened,
and
dude.
The amount that's happening.
And look at the photos of us as well.
You with the long hair without a mustache, boy.
Dude, we
Different
were,
man.
And you had like, you were Mr. Chubbs over here.
I was Mr. Chubbs with my low stage, and I got to shout out Joel, my hairdresser, because when my hair changed, my life changed. I had the worst haircut, and I looked weird, and then you inspired me to go to the gym and start getting in shape, and then Joel changed my hair, and my life changed, man.
Dude,
it's crazy looking back at that whole situation.
It's just crazy, but it's
part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's such an important part of it. And I hope people can go and watch this pod and understand the journey, because, like, when you make it big, a lot of people think it happens overnight. But
yeah, I think a final thing that a message that I would leave is there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Yes.
There is
never.
It typically looks like that.
Yeah.
And it may be.
Because when something goes big, it's just exponential, and it just goes really big.
Yeah.
Really big.
But all the foundations, the part of the iceberg below the water that people don't see, is the very thing that makes the iceberg big enough to see. And I think people don't credit the journey enough, and it makes things look like it was easy. And even now, it's like, still not fucking easy.
No.
Like, you can't look at what potentially I might be doing or you might be doing and go, oh, he's got it all figured out. Life is sorted for him. It's easy for him to say now that he's got this big thing going on. It's like, well, no. A, I still don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
B, I'm kind of building the plane on the way down. And C, all the shit that I went through to get to this moment, you've experienced it. It's like all of the low times where you don't really know how you're going to get out, but you just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And no one's there to support you. It's like those are the very moments that are what make these ones so special.
Yeah.
And when we met up in LA and we're on this rooftop and I'm lying there and I just start laughing. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is life? Like this journey that we've been through is so crazy. And yeah, it's a cool thing to reflect on. And it seems to be what we always do when we catch up, because we don't live near each other anymore and we don't catch up as much. But whenever we do, we reflect, because like life's just kind of gone like this.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't always the case. And I just think the moments we're really going to remember is when we pull out those shitty dumbbells.
Yeah.
And it's behind my desk in that little apartment room. And we're playing some music on a little Yui boom.
Yeah.
And we're lifting some weights with our shirt off. And we're just getting it done.
Yeah.
Like those are the times that just matter.
Yeah. It's the real shit.
And it's special. So I want to commend you, dude. And
dude, thank you so much. And I'm so glad we were finally able to do this.
So glad we can finally do
it,
this.
man.
And it's a cool thing to just like, I'm very cool. And I'm one of Ollie's biggest fans. So Chris has
been big supporter from day dot. I remember one last thing. I remember because we went to a stage where we go partying a lot, and I remember even like the next day or whatever, we'd be in the car and there'd always like be someone we'd met on a night out or whatever in the car. We'd be on the in an Uber on the way back from a venue or something, and then we'd be like 4 randoms or whatever, and you'd be like, yo, I gotta put something on, and you would always play my like recent demos I'd say you, and then you'd be like, guess who this is, to these randoms, and then you'd be like, oh, it's this guy. You would start showing everybody, and then even when I'd meet people who through you, they'd be like, oh, you're the guy Chris has showed me all your music.
Biggest fan. Yeah. But also the reason is because there's an attachment there, because I seen your creation of it, like the whole creation process. You obsess over it. You make all the beats, like you do all of this, and it's this piece of art that I think people listen to and can feel it, because you put so much into it and you obsess over it, and it's just something that needs to be rewarded. So I love being able to help where I can, and being that supporter when I know sometimes it feels like no one is backing you. It's like, I know how much that can help. So it's my pleasure, man. But I appreciate you coming on the show,
I used to make music because I was like, there was times where I'd be like, I don't want to make music, but then I'm like, fuck, I want to make something to show Chris.
Let's go.
Hell yeah. But man, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Appreciate you, dude. And if you guys have made it to the end, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. It helps the show grow, helps us get amazing people just like Ollie back on the show, so we can keep on growing together. I'm going to sign out for this week, but I'll see you next week.